Hey guys, Michael here. So, I want to start out this video with a little bit of a disclaimer, which is number one, I don't really like to complain too much. I don't really consider myself a complainer. I think sometimes we can all lose sight of the forest for all the trees, and sometimes I have criticisms for games that really, in hindsight, feel a little bit more like nitpicking. And I want to make it very clear that when it comes to Warhammer 3, this is a game that I think is a flawed masterpiece. I think that there's an awful lot in this game that Creative Assembly has every right to feel very good about. I just want to put that out there up front because there are some things in this game that are just not acceptable. They're just, for a game that has been out as long as this one has been out, for a strategy game that involves tactics and is really the apex of the industry when it comes to these things, there's some aspects of it that are just not acceptable in a game that was developed 30 years ago, much less one that's in a modern game engine. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to talk about here. All of these examples are things that came up in a single episode that I recorded last night of the Tomb Kings Let's Play. So we're talking about 1 hour of gameplay, and it basically encapsulated so many of the problems that we experience related to siege battles. So let's go ahead and dive into this. But like I said, I do want to keep in the back of our minds here the fact that there's still an awful lot to like about this game. If CA could just fix a couple of these things, it would go so far to improving the experience. Now, this is not using the beta, the Siege beta, the Siege rework, because I had existing Let's Plays that were already in process, and so I couldn't really risk switching over to the beta for purposes of trying to continue those. So I'm somewhat hopeful that these problems will be maybe improved a little bit in the Siege beta. From what I've seen other people talking about, I've not seen any examples that make me think that these things will be improved, but that's basically the other disclaimer that I wanted to throw here at the very beginning. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, the first one that I want to show actually isn't even in the siege battle itself. We've all experienced this. This is an example of where the AI has absolutely overwhelming strength vis-a-vis a settlement that they've encircled or laid siege to, and they just, for whatever reason, refuse to make the attack. However, this is the most extreme example that I think I have ever seen. We literally have a single, almost dead unit inside this settlement. It's not even a walled settlement, it's a minor settlement. There's nothing stopping them from being able to click on that attack button, and they're not doing it. It just defies any sense of logic in a modern strategy game that an AI would not make this attack. So that's the first example I wanted to show before we even jump into the siege battles themselves. This has got to be fixed. This is just appalling artificial intelligence. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on now to the battles themselves. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the gate bug. And I guess you have to call it a bug. I can't imagine it's a design decision to work this way. But here we are where I take my Lord and I have him click on the gate to attack it. And then I start, I'm micromanaging all the other units. I'm having them, head up towards the wall. I'm having some of them do an end around the side here. And yeah, I come back to, eventually, this is a few minutes later in the battle, I come back to the gate and it has taken no damage. And the Lord has never even attacked it. So I knew that at some point the AI must have opened the gate, which, as we all know, causes a bug that completely breaks any units trying to attack it. Now, a lot of times the way that this works is that if a unit moves inside the city and then the gate closes behind them, the bug means that they're essentially trapped at that point. You can't move them out, or I don't think the gate even has to close. Once they're inside, but the gate still exists, has not been broken down, they can't move back out of the city. Nobody else can come back in. It's just an absolute nightmare scenario. Now, this is not quite that. This is just the game just, the unit that I told to attack the gate, he just dropped his orders because the gate opened for 1 second. Now, there's no reason why that gate should have opened. Here's what actually happened from the battle itself. I picked it up when I was doing the editing of the cinematics. So yeah, that gate opened up even though nobody came out and nobody came in, but that opening and closing of the gate immediately was enough to just completely break the pathfinding or the attack orders or whatever it is that causes your units to just forget that you asked them to attack the gate. So huge problem right there. Then a little bit later in the battle, I'm just going to go ahead and compound the problem by showing that my unit is standing right in front of the gate and I'm repeatedly giving him attack orders and he's not doing anything. He's just standing there. He's completely either ignoring my orders, or I suppose what's more likely is the game is just bugged out at this point and it doesn't know what to do, so it's just stuck there. So again, can't really have siege battles where you're not able to attack the main ingress into the city. Got to be fixed. All right, the next one that I want to talk about, in fact, all the rest of them, there are workarounds. We can live with them. They're appallingly bad, but we can at least work with them. The first two that I mentioned are the two that I feel like absolutely just have to be fixed. It's just unacceptable that they exist the way that they do. But there are others that are problems, but I won't say they're quite as a high priority because there's a workaround. So I wanted to see what happens if I spread all of my infantry out all along the wall here, and then I do a group select attack order. We've knocked down the gate, so there is a way into the city. And obviously we know that the pathfinding in this game is not smart enough to take the units and single file them through that gate, but I was curious to see what would happen. So even though they're all spread out, so they kind of have the opportunity to just, if they're going to scale the wall, they can scale the wall right in front of them, and they each have their own little portion of the wall here. Or if they wanted to all go in through the gate, they're already kind of lined up in a sequence where they would be able to walk through the gate. So I give an attack order for a unit inside the city to see what they'll do, and then I come back a minute later to see what they have decided to do. At this point, I knew the battle was going to be won, so I wasn't too worried about it, and this is what happens. And I think it kind of speaks for itself, but this is not great pathfinding here. I don't know. It's kind of, just look for yourself and you can kind of see how absolutely atrocious these units are at trying to figure out a sensible way into the city. But in any case, like I said, there is a workaround, but what I should have done, obviously, is individually selected every single unit, individually had them all walk up, or I'm sorry, have them all climb the ladders onto the wall, wait until the unit is entirely on the wall, and then select them all again and have them singularly attack a target, and then they're already in a formation, and so they would be able to then presumably, I think for the most part, they would successfully be able to get themselves back down from the wall inside the city and continue on towards the target. You can't do anything as a group in city battles, and you basically have to take that long period of time of a pause where you wait for entire units to get up on the walls before you give them any kind of a new order, in order for them to be able to move as any kind of a coherent fighting force from that point forward. All right, and then this last one that I want to show, this is, again, it's shame on me. I should have had this archer unit on guard mode. I didn't, but I did not expect this to happen. This is sort of not just a problem in siege battles. This is a problem with ranged units in general in this game. Sometimes when they can't see their target, even though you think they should be able to see their target, they just, for whatever reason, instead of shooting, they just decide to run forward. And so here we are with an archer unit outside the wall. I click and give them a target of an enemy that is standing on top of the wall. In fact, a target that they had been shooting at previously before I moved them a little bit. And then I walk away, come back a minute later to see what's happened to them. And yeah, even though that unit is still up there on top of the wall, they decided, instead of shooting at it, they decided to climb up the walls and join the melee. So not really the behavior that you want to see from your archer unit. Again, not as bad, not as egregious as some of the previous examples, because of course I should have micromanaged this to the point where I didn't let this happen. We all know that ranged units do go completely brain dead and move forward when you don't expect them to in this game. I just didn't expect it here. I should have had them on guard mode, but I thought I'd go ahead and include that in the list, because if there's anything that could be done to basically just say, hey, I'm a ranged unit, I'm shooting at a unit on top of the wall, I've momentarily lost my targeting of them, I feel like the default ought to not be, oh, okay, then obviously it wants me to climb up onto the walls and join the melee instead. So, like I said, a lower priority than the other things that are going on. But anyway, yeah, so I just found that very fascinating that all of these problems were sort of encapsulated in this one session of gaming that I had last night that was only about an hour long. So anyway, yeah, I love the game, really love the game. That some of these problems just really detract from the enjoyment of it, and they don't feel like they should be that hard to fix. The getting the AI to attack a settlement when it has absolutely overwhelming odds, like we saw in the first example, doesn't feel like it should be that difficult of a fix. The gate bug, I've mentioned before, I've given suggestions as to ways to just fix this gate bug so that it doesn't happen, even if it's an imperfect solution. But yeah, you can't have siege battles where you're not able to actually attack the gate, which is supposed to be the main way that that you attack a walled city. But all right, anyway, like I said, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you all think. Appreciate any feedback that you guys can give to CA, because of course they say they're listening to us, and I think they genuinely are. I think they are trying to address some of these problems. But all right, anyway, thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. I will see you all in the next video.